All right, guys, on today's episode, we are getting the opportunity to discuss a concept that is both controversial and exciting in the financial independence community. This idea of paying off your mortgage early or investing it. Ariel is joining us on the show today to discuss this idea, pay off your mortgage or invest. Welcome to the ultimate crowdsourced personal finance show. This is your Friday Roundup.
You're listening to ChooseFI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. ChooseFI, your home for financial independence online.
All right, guys, lots to dive into in this episode. And to help me with this, I have my co-host Brad here with me today. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jonathan, I am doing quite well. And yeah, we had a funny little story a couple of minutes ago. I've had haircuts on the brain because my hair looks kind of atrocious right now. And
It's not that bad, dude.
Yeah, no.
You need to calm down.
But when I roll into your house this morning, I'm like, wow, Jonathan's hair looks amazing. And you don't normally compliment other guys on their haircut, but I'm like, Jonathan, that's a really nice haircut.
And I said, thank you. How else do you respond when someone else gives you a compliment on your haircut? But no, I did. I followed that with, my wife, it's kind of a long standing thing. My wife actually cuts my hair and has been doing so basically since for the last 2 years. Honestly, I don't think there's probably a better compliment that you get. I mean, certainly I appreciate the compliment, but I don't think there's anything that would make her heart sing as much as knowing that someone objectively from the outside world came in and said, wow, that is a nice haircut.
And yeah, it was great because you just moved to this part of town. And I'm like, wow, Jonathan found some kind of secret haircutting place, right? Like, who is it? And lo and behold, it's Danny. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. I mean, honestly, the biggest reason for me having her cut my hair on day one was just the time. It saves you some money. And honestly, that's worth considering. Is it $10 a pop, $20 a pop, $20 a pop plus a tip? I mean, I'm sure there's people that laugh at that amount, says $20 is the tip. But for me, that's the one aspect. But the larger point for having Danny do it is just building it into our day, right? It's the time savings. I mean, look at the poor you. Let's pity you for just a second. Think about throughout your week, you have to schedule time to go get a haircut. And then you have to go through all these different aspects of fitting it in. How long is it going to take? Is there going to be a line when I get there? Is it going to be my guy or gal? All these different things. We got Seinfeld on in the background, man. I mean, whatever, it's just built into our day and you just fit it in where you want to. So I think the time savings for me has been the biggest piece of that. But now 20 something, 30 something, 50 something haircuts in. Yeah, she's pretty good. Well, speaking of time, money, savings. So my wife has actually been, for the last several months, has said to me, I would like to take more of a hands-on role with regards to our actual budget. So we have no consumer debt in our life and we have a pretty aggressive savings rate. But one of the luxuries of not being paycheck to paycheck and not having consumer debt is the hedonic treadmill that's always in the background, right? That kind of low-level lifestyle inflation that probably naturally happens to all of us as we get a little bit more space. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not always against it, but you do need to recognize when maybe you've gotten a little bit lax and you've lost sight of maybe some of your overarching goals. And so my wife has kind of had this sense of dread of, I think we just went to the grocery store 6 times this week, or we just, whatever. We just made this extra purchase that it was totally a whim. It wasn't planned. And that creates some anxiety for her at some level. And she's expressed the desire to me to really understand where every single penny of our money goes. Now, in the past, we used Mint. When we were paying off all our debt, we used Mint to track all of our finances and we used it rigorously. But as a budgeting tool, I feel like the longer I think about this, the less excited I get about Mint as a budgeting tool. Fantastic tracking tool. If you want to know how much your life costs, fantastic. But setting a plan for your money, it can do the job if you're willing to put the time in, but it's not really designed for that as much as you might like. And so our community specifically has raved to us by email on our Facebook group about why now. I've never really used it, to be honest with you. It's always been out there as, oh, it must be a nice thing, but it's a software as service. It costs like $5 or $6 a month, something like that. I think it's like $80 for a year subscription. So I've always been like hesitant to really add on these additional subscriptions onto my life that I don't know if I'm going to use or not. But it is designed for the sole purpose of helping you design and put money towards your life goals, with the ultimate goal of each month spending every dollar that you have. Now, you can assign that dollar toward you can spend it on your savings, you can spend it on stuff, but you're creating a plan for your money. Now, I didn't know much more than that other than people in our community loved it. But because my wife had come back to me over and over again, and because Mint really wasn't it just wasn't working for her. She would just get lost in the weeds. It wasn't super usable. I said, you know what? Why don't we go ahead and give this a shot? So I took the day kind of going through the learning curve, helping her set up an account, loading all of our stuff in. And pretty quickly, I'm starting to see why people get excited about it. I don't have a whole lot else to report at this point other than it's on my radar and this is like an ongoing experiment. But if this thing costs $84 a year, but because of it, your money has a goal and you actually stick to your goals, and it saves you thousands and thousands of dollars a year that you just don't spend on stuff that you look back a year later and say, oh, that was the target black hole, right? That's what we saw Joel talk about in his episode, The Milestones of FI, episode 32. If something allows you to create a plan for your money, I think it might actually be worth it. So anyways, long story short, I wanted to tee this up. We are on a 1 to 3 month experiment now to see how our spending patterns change as a result of maniacally following this you need a budget plan. And I will report back.
Yeah, that's very cool. As you know, we've talked about this a lot. I have never budgeted ever in my entire life. I can't imagine doing it, but I'm curious for you, like, you expect it to change your behavior. Theoretically, it's going to help you save thousands of dollars extra. So to me, like, that almost by definition means there's behavior change.
Yeah.
So talk me through how that works realistically.
Yeah. All right. So for instance, let's start with you. You, like Chris Hutchins, he referenced this idea that we're gonna apply to you. You save 100% until you make the decision to spend a penny. Yeah, all right. My default is not saving money. My default is having everything I want to have. That's my natural bias. And shiny object syndrome. You look around, oh, I can have it. Oh, I have space. I don't have any debt. I have lots of bandwidth because I have a 50% savings rate. I can afford it. Why not? Right? All right, fine. I don't hate on that idea. I think long-term, the goal is to live from a place of abundance that if you want something, you can have it. But I don't want to be there at the expense of my future goals, which is to never need to make decisions based on money again. Right? I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about this idea of getting to the point where working is optional. That's objectively what we're saying. What does it look like when you get to the point where money doesn't affect your decisions anymore? Those two are in conflict with each other to some varying degree, especially if you go too big too soon, right? My hope with this is twofold. One, to see my wife be able to take ownership, to feel invested in the process. Yes, in the background, I'm doing all the little things, making sure that we're invested in our 401ks, that we're getting our match, that we're maxing it out, that we're hitting our HSA max, that we're doing all the little things that we need to, in the background, be very secure. But at the micro level, our day-to-day operations, there's some aspect for her that if she sees, this is a concept that YNAB uses, the age of your money. The money that you made 1 or 2 paychecks ago, not the money that you're going to make in this next paycheck to cover all your expenses, but the money that you made 2 or 3 paychecks back, that's what's covering your monthly expenses. And so at the micro level, I think she personally will get a lot of satisfaction from the idea of managing our day-to-day budget. And I will obviously get invested in like watching her get invested in the process. It's actually a way for us to interact on this. And so I think for multiple levels, I suspect there's going to be some unintended benefits that I can't see right now. And after I've done this for a few months, I'll understand a little bit better. And I'll try to document this experiment as we go along. But this is completely like uninitiated here. I don't even have anything to point you to other than, as we talk about, this is a journey that we're all on together. And this is the part of the journey that my wife and I have decided for this season of life to tackle now. And if it works for us, we'll continue to do it forever. If it makes our life better, why would we not do it? If it ends up being just another thing, we'll just cut it. No big deal, right? I mean, the worst case scenario is that at the end of the year, we have 84 less dollars than we have right now. That's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is my wife's satisfaction is at an all-time high. Her security over what our plan is an all-time high. And maybe we even have thousands of additional dollars that went to goals that we would have just not had in another parallel universe, in the multiverse.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like a no-lose proposition. I like it, and I can't wait to hear some updates.
All right, let's go and take a few minutes and talk about this past week's episode with Ziana McIntyre and her story. Honestly, Brad, it's kind of a unique approach to this path to financial independence. And what struck me is we've had several guests basically say at the end of their story, what would you tell your younger self? I would tell my younger self to stop worrying. It's just going to work out. And the reason I wanted to highlight that with this episode is Ziana's path is not linear, right? It's not preordained. In fact, we actually used this term a couple times throughout the episode. It started with a little bit of a transient lifestyle to begin with, and it ended up okay because of the principles, not because of the show, but because of the principles that have been highlighted on the show over and over again. And the only real difference between herself and maybe someone listening to this right now is she just took action on those ideas.
Yeah, Jonathan, this seemed like one big experiment to me. We've used that word a lot, and Ziana just had this experiment and this adventurous spirit. She was trying to figure this out as she went along. And it sounded like she was having a boatload of fun in the process. She was hopping around between bedrooms of these places when they were empty. She had a couple of 2-bedroom places. She wound up going on hikes with many of her Airbnb guests. And she said it was fun and flexible and adventurous. And like that to me is just a cool way to go through life. It's not like this was just willy-nilly. I mean, she was getting into Mr. Money Mustache. She said, okay, if I can cover this huge amount that I spend on housing and I have so much more freedom, maybe I wouldn't have to work, or I can work just a little bit here and there. And so it was just working me towards my goal. So it wasn't really like a trial and error. It was just like, I've started doing it and it's working. So then how can I expand it?
And I definitely want to talk about expansion and building systems because this is a huge piece of her story, but I think it's important to point out that it's not the most important part of her story. It was taking action, but if you get past what does taking action actually mean, one, it was quite literally just experimenting, going to the Airbnb platform and just signing up to be a host, right? And then two, right after that, when she really wanted to get started and she wanted to not just do this sublease type thing where she's renting a property and she's got permission from the landlord to rent out one of the extra rooms, which actually, I mean, that I am sure is viable in many parts of the country. Practically for her, though, what I viewed as the biggest inflection point for her was when she does not have like this steady, stable W-2 income job. She wants to get a home. And I can just tell you for certain, that is where most investors just stop. It's not when you can't get traditional financing, when the standard playbook that society has written for you doesn't work, we just stop looking. We don't ask a better question. We don't reframe our thought process. We don't ask ourselves, all right, well, what else can we do? We just say, oh, well, I can't get approved for a bank because I don't have 2 years of W-2 income from this last job. I guess we'll just let that dream die and move on. But she latched onto the fact that I can communicate a vision, albeit as it's in kind of this infant stage, right? I don't have this fully polished system in place right now. This is going to be my first deal, but I can present and sell this vision of the fact that I found this home. It's a good deal, and I can present this as a win-win to an investor. I'll be living there. I'll be renting it out. Between the income that I'm making from this Airbnb and the income that I'm making from my job, I project this, and an investor went for it. And I think, I mean, she had to ask this fellow, that her first investor, she asked him to borrow $144,000. In her words, it might as well have been $1 million to me. That resonated with me because it put me in my shoes, and only because my memory is really bad. I'm not sure if it was 2008 or for 2011, but somewhere in that period of time, I was listening to Bigger Pockets podcast, and I was determined that real estate was going to be my vehicle to a successful future. Just, I'm listening, I'm kind of enjoying it. Every single week I've decided, I'm going to do wholesale investing. I'm going to do this. I'm changing strategies constantly. But I always hit the wall that in order to get traditional financing, you're going to need a good W-2 paycheck. This is the easiest way to get a great rate. And to be honest with you, I couldn't get out of my own way to visualize, one, how I was going to save up enough cash to be able to do this all in cash. And certainly not this third option, that I'm going to be able to find someone that would be willing to lend me this money on a great deal. It's interesting now how 9 years later, 2019, I look back at that earlier version of myself and I said, oh, that was cute. If you had just been willing to ask a different question, if you had just been willing, instead of saying, oh, I can't do this, to find out what it would look like to be able to do this, to find other people who had done this and learn what they did. Wow, how that story could have been different.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she said. She had to get creative. She said she knew the info in Boulder, Colorado. She knew this could be a success, but she couldn't get financing the traditional way. So she had, as she said, an OG real estate investor guy, which I just loved, who gave out loans. She approached him, and her quote, and Jonathan, this stuck out to me. This was the line of the podcast. All he could say was no. Think about how powerful that is. All he could say was no. That is just great life advice for taking action. What's the worst that can happen in most situations? It's far less than you anticipate. Far, far less. We concoct, and actually, while you were saying that about the 2 years of W-2 employment and all this stuff, like I'm thinking of my own limiting beliefs of, oh, I'm self-employed. I couldn't possibly get a mortgage, or I would get stuck on these traditional ways because I've never been that creative with this stuff. But seeing someone like Ziana and going out of her comfort zone, like that was not easy for her, obviously, to approach this guy and ask for $144,000 really just out of the blue. But all he could say was no. And I love that. That's one of those phrases I hope we keep here at ChooseFI. All he could say was no.
Honestly, from my perspective now, looking back, getting the person to say yes really isn't the hard part. I mean, it isn't the hardest part. Finding a good deal is the actual hard part, right? And it's not even that hard with the tools that are available if you know where to look, because you've increased your zone of awareness, because you've learned from people that are doing these types of deals now, you know where to look. If you find a good deal, the money will follow. Because honestly, people at a certain level, they do not have the energy to do what Chad Carson called bird dogging it. It's a phrase that's used, it's attached to having dogs that go on the hunt. They go out into the bush and the shrubs and they find them, they chase them down for you. That's high energy. It takes some research, takes some time. But once you have found a deal, then the deal is the deal. The deal stands for itself. And if you pair that with a person who is known for integrity, honesty, and being able to take action on these ideas that doesn't flake, those two together, you're going to have investors lining up. It will happen because it's a secured asset, right? This loan that this individual gave to her wasn't just, hey, go do whatever you want with this. It was tied to a mortgage. And this is why hard money lenders exist. And in fact, it's why people try to break into this industry, because there is an advantage. In fact, this investor, they just did a form of a simple loan. So it was 5% year over year with the entire balance due at the end of this 3rd-year period of time. A hard money loan, the rates often run closer to 10%. And usually it's for a shorter period of time. It's so someone buys the house, they do whatever they need to do with it. They get someone in the house and they're able to refinance, pull that hard money loan out and give that money back to the lender. The lender's goal is to keep this money constantly loaned out at these higher rates, which is 10% plus, as consistently as possible. And so the lender's goal is to find investors that need this temporary cash flow, but are also reliable and have found good deals. So if you say, I know the hard money lenders are out there, what does it look like to be an attractive source for them? It's one, find a good deal. So instead of freaking out about the money, what does it look like to cultivate the skill set of someone that knows how to run the numbers, cultivate that skill set first, and find good deals, then learn how to put all that together? The money will find you if you can do both of those. It's incredibly powerful. My brain, basically my limited brain was putting myself back in the situation of what I was going to do. My path was going to be go to school, spend 4 years in undergrad, spend 4 years getting my doctorate in pharmacy to be good at this one particular thing, and then 4 years paying it off. What if you could take a fraction of that amount of time and just learn what does it look like to be able to evaluate real estate deals and be able to learn what it takes to take the deal that you found and put it together into a business proposal and then position that for real estate investors to invest in you? People are already doing this. People have done this. This is clearly not a new idea. What if you heard that and said, all right, this year, that's my goal, to arm myself with information and be that person going into the future?
Yeah, and we talked about zone of awareness, right? And also your network. You just never know when you're open to new ideas and new people and new things, what's going to cross your plate. Ziana originally thought it would just be small with these 2 properties, but then she heard about this friend in Los Angeles who had 7, and that was like a mind-blowing thing to her. Her quote was, what would it look like if there were more? Could I be fully retired and get to those goals? And those were the goals from Mr. Money Mustache, right? That she had picked up. And she said, so it was starting to rumble in my mind a little bit. How great is that, right?
This is actually a question you have asked me, like verbatim, those words. What would it look like? So for instance, let me play this because this is on loop, conversation between me and Brad. Brad, I can't do this. I just got to do all this podcast editing. That's what I have to do right now. And a question that you would just send right back to me, which would stop me in my tracks, would be, what would it look like to be able to create a system where you didn't have to do that? Think about the mindset that I can't because I'm doing this. And then the reframe, okay, well, let's just stop for a second and ask a better question. What would it look like to be able to create a system where you don't have to do that? So then you can do all these other things that you've currently put off the shelf. What is like one thing in your life, and maybe Brad will ask this to you just to sandbag you a little bit here, but what's one thing that you say that you can't do right now? What's the first thing that came to mind?
All right. Right off the top of my head, Jonathan, as always, is...
I live for this.
So yeah, I mean, I guess I can't take vacations with my family, my entire family, including my girls, during the school year.
Okay, so if we were going to reframe the question to allow us to explore the perimeters of what actually is possible, we would just change that to a how. How can I take vacations with my family during the school year? And clearly this is something that takes some time to think about, but just for the sake of exploring this on this episode, what would it look like for that to actually be able to happen?
Well, that's a good question. I guess obviously a lot of it would have to do with the schoolwork. How do they either front load that work? So it would be getting in touch with teachers and principals and such and saying, okay, we're going to be gone for this amount of time. I can't imagine it's going to be a month or more during the school year, but let's even say 2 weeks. We're going to be gone for this amount of time, but obviously we don't want our kids falling behind. What can we do? Are there ways to work around this? Are there precedents for this? Do you have other examples of families who have done this? Can I get in touch with them?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly. And I bet you there are examples of other families that have done this for maybe a luxury or maybe an emergency. It's happened before. So just by changing that question slightly, if you decided that this was actually important to you, this is not a whim. This is really something that would be meaningful for yourself and for your family to pull this off. Just changing that slightly gives you permission internally to start finding examples of other people that have done it. And this is a throwaway, right? But how many people in our audience just sit on that? There's something that's crushing them, but they never give themselves permission to explore how, and they stop on can't.
Yeah, Jonathan, this is great. So, I mean, you obviously sandbagged me, right? But let's throw this out to the audience. My question to you is, what is the one thing you say you can't do? Really think about that. What's something that you'd love to change in your life, but you have just always said, I can't do that. You dismiss it out of hand, just like I have with this travel during the school year. How would you reframe this? I mean, I just thought of that on the fly with my own reframing of this particular issue. And maybe it's something that's viable. I mean, that's with 15 seconds of thought. That was a limiting belief that I may have surmounted after 15 seconds of thought. How would you reframe your thing that you say you can't do? I mean, to me, this is similar to our what's the one thing you've taken action on this week? The post that I put in the Facebook group every Friday morning. What's the one thing you did this week to take action to make your life better? Every single week, we need to be thinking about something like this. How can you just make your life better in some incremental way? And I think this is a question that's now going to be a perennial one.
And to me, Brad, questions, right? That's something that we have asked a bunch of over the life of this show. But right now on this spot, the questions that you as an individual give yourself permission to ask are what lead to your future. It's a lot of responsibility. And I hope the people listening to this, they realize that and they access that superpower. I think it's part of designing your future, being willing to ask a better question. All right, Brad, let's go ahead and dive into this next segment. And we have Ariel joining us on the show today. And we're going to be discussing a little bit further this idea of pay off the mortgage or invest. It's an idea that we have hit on multiple times kind of in passing, and we've tackled it from different angles. There's the sequence of return risk angle. There's the freedom that you have by not having the mortgage over your head angle. But I don't know if we've looked at it from a specific individual's perspective. If they think about it, I think in your words, like a horse race, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, you have a couple of different options. You can just pay according to the normal amortization schedule. You can pay the thing off aggressively, or you could take that money that you were going to pay down the mortgage and invest it. we've kind of conceptually talked about that for a couple of years now, but we've never really dove into the numbers. And the cool thing is, Ariel reached out to us and said, hey, I've got this spreadsheet and I'd love to present it to the ChooseFI community. So we thought this was just the absolute perfect time. And with that, Ariel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I want to talk about your spreadsheet. Do love those spreadsheets. Sure. But before we do that, I'm a little bit curious about your money story, your financial independence story, and I guess kind of how you found our community.
Yep. So about 2 years ago, I started looking into how to make extra money. I always wanted to make some extra money, but I had an 18-month-old son, and I realized I couldn't really have a big side hustle. So then I started looking into real estate. I found Bigger Pockets, and just a few months later, they launched Bigger Pockets Money. I listened to that. I really loved them, but I knew that real estate might not be a quick fix for me. And then they had you guys on. I loved your guys' energy and started listening to the two of you. I realized pretty quickly after starting to listen to your podcast that this was a real option for my family. We started looking pretty quickly at how quickly can we retire. That was something that we were both interested in. My husband at that time did not like his job. I actually do love my job, but I was pregnant with our second and really wanted to have some more time with the boys at home before they go off to school, and I never see him again. So that was something that we started looking at, and we'd been pretty lucky early on that we both had our colleges paid for by parents and grandparents, and we came out of college with little to no debt, and we were able to start saving pretty early on in our lives. So our journey to FI is maybe shorter than somebody else in their early 30s, but still something that we wanted to work on. I would say I also love spreadsheets in every way and every form possible. And we took a lot of different options to figure out how it made the most sense to spend our money. And our mortgage is one that we've gone just back and forth on, what it made the most sense to do with the paying off the mortgage, not paying off the mortgage, what to do with it.
Ariel, so you said that real estate was not a quick fix for you. It sounds like you were really trying to get more information on personal finance at that point. You were following Bigger Pockets, then Bigger Pockets Money, and you found ChooseFI. And it sounds like from that point on, you decided to take action and realize that this was something you could do in your own life. I'm curious if you could put yourself and your husband back at that point, not all that long ago, but in the last 2 years, like what actually shifted for you after you found the financial independence community?
Sure. So we were Dave Ramsey followers very closely, and we loved getting to the journey of, the first couple of baby steps. But we hit a point where we said, okay, what else is there? And, after we listened to your podcast of, why everyone needs Dave Ramsey and why you shouldn't listen to him. And we said, this is it. This is the change that we need to make in our lives. So we had a great budget. We were specific on what we were doing, but then what did we do with that? We didn't know how to take it to the next level. We were okay with working, but we knew that we needed to do something more in our lives than just save some of our money into a 401k and retire 30 years later. So that was when we really said, how much money can we really start saving? How much are we spending in some categories that we don't need to spend as much? And that really shifted everything for us, is that we realized we could be saving at least 20 to 30% after putting money into our 401ks, that we could put it somewhere that made more sense than into our savings account and earn 0.5% every month. And it could really change the trajectory of our lives.
It's very interesting to hear you say that, first of all, just because I feel like your experience with the baby steps and mine were very similar in that you get to a certain point and you're very grateful for how much progress you've made, but you don't feel like those baby steps are going to get you to the next level. You feel like they're kind of tapering off, they're plateauing, and now you're just kind of in no man's land trying to figure out what is that next thing. That was a similar realization that I had. What else is there? I feel like financial independence clearly gave me those steps to get myself to the point where money no longer is the determining factor on the choices I make for my life and for my family's life. So I get very excited about that concept. But I'm curious for you, when you're in no man's land and you're in a good shape, you have a very safe, standard, traditional path, it's going to work out, to aggressively pursuing this concept of financial independence. What did you, like specifically, you said you moved some categories around. Did you see any differences in your savings rate? Any strategies that you implemented? What did you guys latch hold of that really you feel like moved the needle for you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we, or at least I specifically, really like finding life hacks that work well for our lives. I listen to the two of you and I think, okay, which one of you am I more like? And I'm still 50-50. So I love finding life hacks. I'm sure people say that, right? But I love finding life hacks. But also if I get a bonus or I get a raise, I think, what can I spend this money on? so I have to, kind of go back and forth. But I think, some of the really cool life hacks that we've implemented. One is I teach group fitness on the side. I teach one class a week, and that I get paid to work out, which is great. And then I also get free membership to my gym. So it's just a super little tiny life hack that, I got certified in group fitness years ago, and now I have free membership to my gym. So that saves my husband and I money every month. I do little things like cut my own hair and I cut my husband's hair. For the women out there that listen, you guys might not care, but your wives might. I bought a gel nail lamp that was $50, a one-time purchase. And now I never have to get a manicure or pedicure again. For the women out there, especially those of us that work, that's a significant savings.
Awesome.
Just to not have to get your nails done.
My wife does have a birthday coming up, but I will make sure she doesn't listen to this segment.
There you go. Don't let her listen. Yes. No, it's fantastic. It's amazing. And you don't even have to be that good for it to look great and last for weeks. I would say something also that we're starting to try to do just to move the needle is to garden the products that we do eat a lot of. So my husband loves tomato sauce and I love tomatoes. So we are, growing tomatoes. Just little things we try to implement as I say, okay, I just got a bonus. Let's put that into VCSAX and save money instead. Those are kind of the little things that we're trying to do. We also finally moved to Aldi. It took us a really long time to get on board with bringing our own bags to the store.
Gotta have your quarter too.
You got your quarter, right? I know. But it's probably 30% of our grocery budget is down because we go to Aldi now. So they're pretty significant moves.
So just with those things alone, I would imagine that you were able to carve out probably about $500 a month in bandwidth just from those, what may by themselves seem like disparate, smallish items. But together, right. I mean, would you say you've created a space of $500 a month in your life?
Oh, easily. And it's the same thing, right? I mean, I think that's the biggest thing about the FI community, the FIRE community is my life is no different, but I'm saving money.
Yeah, that is the best. That's how I look at it. It's kind of like this fun way to win at life. It makes it a game. You're getting the exact same thing, if not better, if not easier, right? You don't have to go out for that manicure anymore. You don't have to drive and make an appointment and wait. It's just right there. So, I mean, you're winning in every possible way. I love that. So what does this path to FI look like for you guys now?
It's really interesting. We kind of had a plan that we were going to get to FI in about 7 years. So the goal was when we were both around 40, we would both be fully retired. Neither of us ever have to work again. If we didn't want to, we never had to earn another dollar. However, we've started to shift our mindset a little bit that if one of us, maybe the mom, wants to stay home, about a year from now, we should be able to be partially retired if my husband still works part-time and I would never have to work again. We love the FI plan, but we've realized our sons are never going to be home full-time again. We're never going to have this opportunity where 12 months of the year, we could go on vacation if we wanted to. And so my husband works part-time as a Spanish medical interpreter. He gets cases as he needs to take them. And if a year from now, we decide we'll have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. If we want to take 2 to 5 years off, that's probably what we're going to do. After that, if when they're both in full-time school, I want to go back to work part-time just to cushion our expenses a little bit, that's what we'll do.
That makes perfect sense to me, especially my daughters are in school now. Yep. Those 5 or 6 years when they were 0 to pre-kindergarten, those were the years. And I mean, obviously we get to spend a lot of time with them now, but it's different, right? I mean, they're in school 35 plus hours a week. So intuitively, I really, really understand that. So just to be clear, you guys are well down the path to FI at this point. You have a significant net worth. And what you've decided is you are not working for these years. And your husband is basically just working part-time, as I'm guessing, to make enough income to just cover your yearly expenses, right? So you're not looking to save any significant amount of money, but this is part of your personal FI journey. Is that a fairly decent summation of it?
Yep. So I would say what our plan would be if a year from now we say that I'm going to partially retire or take a couple year long sabbatical, he would work part-time, and then we'd use part of our saving to cover that time period. So I would say if a year from now we're probably at half FI, and so to get to full FI would take another 6 years. But if we said from that point I'm going to stop working, we'll stop putting additional money into our accounts, and he will work part-time and I will not work at all, and we'll use our money that we've saved to cover half of our expenses.
That's very cool. Yeah, thank you for the clarification. I love that. So, right, his part-time work is almost acting, if you will, as like a pension, right? Like I'm kind of thinking it in this funny way that we think about FI. Like that money, it will be there, and then whatever you have to pull out of your investments to make up the difference, then so be it, right?
Correct.
Awesome.
All right. So let's go ahead and tie a little bit of what you talked about earlier with the idea of the horse race. So, and honestly, just since you said you came from the Dave Ramsey kind of camp in terms of the baby steps, let's actually walk through the baby steps just for a second. So baby step 1, save $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. Baby step 2, pay off all debt except the house using the debt snowball. Baby step 3, save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. Baby step 4, invest 15% of your household income in retirement. Baby step 5, save for your children's college fund. Baby step 6, pay off your home early. Baby step 7, build wealth and give. Now, I consider baby steps 4, 5, 6, 7, kind of the no man's land, or maybe especially 5, 6, 7. It just kind of gets kind of vague and tepid. And in particular, the space between saving for your children's college fund and paying off your home early, this is really what we're diving into today, because this is the conflict that many people have. I'm debt-free. I'm so grateful to be debt-free, but now I'm trying to get to this next place, and the step that I'm on is pay off my home early. The question that we kind of led with was, if your 3 options are 1, just pay off your home over 30 years, if you just got a 30-year mortgage. Option 2, you in particular have $500 a month space that you've created that you could throw at that mortgage and you could pay it down early. And then option 3 would be let your home ride and invest that $500 a month with the purpose of when it hits a certain amount, using it to pay off your mortgage. And Ariel, I'd love for you to walk through with your specific situation with your mortgage, what the math indicated for you.
Absolutely. I'll give you our real numbers. So we bought a house that was $310,000. We put down 20%, or Dave would have been mad at us. We did the estimate at a 4% interest rate, paying it off for 30 years, just paying the basic payment a little less than $1,200 a month. Our interest would be $178,000, but our total spend, which is what makes me almost nauseous, would be $426,000. So that is after the 20% is down, our loan payment was only $248,000 and we'd spend $426,000. So I knew from the beginning we wanted to do something better. But if you do the math and you add that $500 per month from the very beginning, that interest number goes down significantly. So paying it off over 30 years is $178,000, but paying it off early with $500 extra per month takes you down to $93,000. So that sounds initially like a significant savings. However, because we are the FI community and we do things even better, what could we do a step above that? And so we know that there are the 2 camps on either side of it. Pay it off early, put that money in something like VTSAX. And so if you put that $500 per month into VTSAX, and then you hit a point where the amount of money you have in that account has earned enough that you can pay your mortgage out of that account, then it's even better. And so I use the conservative number of earning only 6% on that money. One number that I think is really interesting is if you look at paying your mortgage off after 30 years, that's 360 months. If you put $500 extra towards your mortgage every month, that will take you down to 203 months. However, if you put that $500 per month towards VTSAX and then start paying out of that account, it will only take you 182 months. So it actually saves you 21 months of saving that $500 per month. If you put that $500 extra per month towards your mortgage, your total spent now goes down to $342,000. But if you put it into VTSAX and then pay your mortgage out of that account once you have enough, now you're down to $306,000. So you've essentially saved $35,000 by you doing nothing different at all. And because I know you guys use the 8%, I did some additional math, and that would actually take you from 182 months down to 158 months. And your total spent, if you're putting it all into VTSAX, if you were an 8% instead of 6%, it would take you from spending $306,000 down to only $266,000. So you as the homeowner are doing nothing different with that $500. You only have to have that $500 extra per month, but you save a significant amount of money, and you have to do it for a significantly less amount of time.
Yeah, this is awesome. Now, I'm going to let Brad try to poke holes in this in some capacity in just a second here. But before I do that, I just wanted to point out that some of this is guaranteed and some of this is projection, right? Just the obvious difference between the two. Like, for instance, if you make the minimum payment over 30 years, the total you're going to spend is $426,236. The other calculation that is guaranteed on here is if you were to put $500 a month extra towards that mortgage, then you will pay it off in just 203 months instead of 360. So you're getting multiple years of your life back, and you will save just under, like, right around $80,000, right around $80,000 in interest. So you will only spend $341,849. Those are guaranteed numbers. That's just amortization. There's no future projection. So clearly, if the option is pay extra versus not pay extra, that's your only two, you're going to save a lot of money by paying it down, more aggressively, just in interest alone. What was super interesting to me was this projection that you made, because I think you used, and honestly, rightly so, conservative numbers for this. You didn't, we talk about 8%, but you're talking about making a decision that's based around paying off a home. And you didn't just say, 8%. You said, let me dial this down to 6%. And then over a period of time, what is the duration of time that this projection is based on? Is it 15 years?
So the entire time period, I still looked at, you're paying your mortgage off in 30 years, just half of the time is coming out of VTSAX.
So this last one is based over until it's paid off, which is a 30-year mortgage. So we're looking at a 30-year span. You're saying over 30 years, if I were to get 6%, which is even more conservative than what we're talking about on the show, the difference, those two interest points, that is going to save you an additional $35,000, $36,000. Your total spent on this mortgage would only be $306,486. Your mortgage, it would be paid off the equivalent in 182 months. I think that is a very reasonable projection, and I love that you took the time to put this together. And I think this, for many people, as long as in your mind you can partition this out, like if you're legitimately in the pace that you say, well, Dave told me I have to pay off my mortgage, this is where I'm at. This is a very reasonable bridge to use to allow yourself to then later on down the road give yourself the choice. But I love the way you've built the sheet, and I think this is a very reasonable projection. Brad, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is cool. Ariel, so I just want to dive into this third option. Talk us through what actually is going on. Someone every month, instead of paying that $500 to their mortgage, which, like Jonathan said, that's a guaranteed return. They basically say, okay, over a significant period, let's say 10 to 20 years, I'm going to do better than that 4%, which is the return, right? Because we're talking the 4% interest rate on your mortgage. So you believe that you can do better than that in a broad-based index fund. I think, we talked about VTSAX before. So I think in your schedule, you actually put a fairly conservative 6%, right? And as I'm understanding this, so they're just dumping in that $500 into VTSAX every single month, and then you calculated when that amount would get to a point where it could pay off the mortgage in its entirety. Is that right? You're not making any kind of payments along the way. It's just, okay, how do I get this huge pot where that equals my mortgage balance, right?
Absolutely. Yep. So I started from the top and from the bottom in my calculations over the 30-year period, and I said, okay, if I put this in for 6 months, will I have enough to pay off the whole 30-year mortgage? No, I will not. So then I said, okay, let's shift this down by 1 year. If I add an additional 12 months, then will I have enough? So obviously it took me through this time period, and it looks like it's about at the 182-month mark, which flips from putting money in to paying your mortgage out of the account.
Okay, that makes sense. So just by doing this and assuming that 6% return, which of course is
Correct.
not guaranteed, right?
Yep.
But you're saving yourself 21 months of mortgage payments just by doing that.
Correct.
And
Yep.
you also gamed out 8%, which gets you back another 24 months, right? So
Correct.
we're at 45 months saved off of just sending the $500 in dutifully every month to your mortgage versus putting this in VTSAX and having this horse race essentially. So 45 months is almost 4 years. I mean, that's amazing. And that essentially cuts the mortgage payment from the normal 360-month amortization more than in half, down to 158 months, right?
Correct.
That is really, really cool. So people talk about this conceptually, but I wonder what somebody would actually do when they got to that point.
Oh, I was thinking the exact same thing. Do you think that when you have the money there, you've done this and it's outperformed, would you actually have the gall? Would you follow the plan and would you pay it off? That's the real question, right, Brad?
Yeah.
Yep. It's interesting, and I don't have it in this spreadsheet, but I have others.
Of course you do.
My calculations.
This spreadsheet is beautiful, by the way. I love it.
Thank you. And so I said, what if we said, I'm going to put that $500 per month into VTSAX, but the minute that I have enough to pay off, the rest of my mortgage balance, I do it, and I still lost money. So I think that for me, the numbers tell me, no, pay your mortgage every month, have it come out of this account instead. Don't use it for anything else, and don't pay more towards your mortgage, because in the end, as long as you're earning at least 6% or even 5% more than whatever your interest rate is, you're still going to keep earning money.
So your strategy is create a perpetual mortgage payment machine. That's what you're trying to do.
Correct. Yep.
We coined a new phrase here on ChooseFI.
So many letters.
That's great. So, right, this is really helping both camps in essence. If you want to pay off your mortgage, like that appeals to me psychologically. I'm sure you've heard me talk about this ad nauseum here. Like I struggle with this. I really do, because it appeals to me so much on a deep level to have this thing paid off. Then I look at the math and say, I don't know if that's really the smartest thing to do. And this then would set up almost like, I'm assuming you're having a segregated account, right? To just
Correct.
to see it. So
Correct.
when it gets to that point, hey, I can pay off my mortgage at any point. This is my mortgage payoff amount, or whatever phrase Jonathan just came up with this. Like
Yours wasn't nearly as cool. I won't hold it against you. But
it never is. It
mortgage
never is.
payment analysis. Add to the trash bin of throwaway lines.
Yeah. But anyway, so that I really like that. And then you get to that point where, okay, I can make that decision or not, but at least I'm doing it from a position of strength.
Right. I think that was that was one of my concerns with hitting, financial independence is, okay, but how great would it be if I didn't have a mortgage anymore? How helpful would that be if I could just be done with that? My monthly expenses would be less and I wouldn't have to worry about that anymore. And so that's what I wanted to be able to create, is I wanted to create something that made sense so that I could have less payments every month, at least at some point, but then still not lose money by paying off my mortgage too early.
Awesome. Ariel, can we take a copy of your spreadsheet and put it onto our email newsletter next week for people in the community?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'd love for people to be able to run their calculations and see what they come up with. Ariel, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This has been a blast.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go and take a few minutes and talk about the Playing with Fire documentary screening tour. And really, I have two things I want to mention. One, a huge shout out for the Seattle screening that just happened this past week. It was an unbelievable success. It was sold out. Actually, what was really cool about it is after our episode with Paul Merriman, we actually got him a ticket to go see the documentary. So we'd gotten him this VIP ticket, but he just wanted to go hang out and will call with everybody to go collect it. And so what was crazy about that is unbeknownst to him and unbeknownst to us, his daughter had actually purchased a ticket to the documentary already, and they met each other at the screening, not knowing that each other were going to be at the screening.
That's really cool. Yeah, there were a couple hundred people at that Seattle screening. So yeah, another sold out big event. It's really getting exciting to see these all across the country now.
So speaking of big events, ChooseFI was started here in Richmond, Virginia. And we knew at some point we were going to try to make a big push for a screening in our hometown. And we actually do have a date. So first of all, if you're listening to this, you are within the Richmond area or maybe within a 6-hour drive, just a short 6-hour drive. We are going to be doing a screening here in Richmond. If you're in Richmond, you'll be intimately familiar with a Bird Theater. It's arguably the most beautiful theater in all of Virginia. It's a restored 1800s theater. We have 600 tickets available for this screening. And here's the idea. We think because ChooseFI was started here, we have a unique opportunity. I would say that at most of the screenings that have happened up to this point, there's kind of like a 75-25 mix of people that are intimately familiar with financial independence, and then 25% of people are coming because they have been invited and they're kind of getting this introduction. The entire premise of this documentary is to act as a gateway to this conversation. And because ChooseFI was started here in Richmond, Virginia, we think we have a real opportunity to change that percentage dramatically. And we suspect that at this screening that we're going to be doing, it will be either closer to 50-50, or maybe honestly, there will be more people at this screening that have never heard about financial independence before than there are people that have been intimately familiar with this community for a long time. And that is going to present us with a very unique opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. And this should be a wonderful event. So this is Friday, July 19th. And like you said, we have rented out this phenomenal old theater there. It's this famous theater here in Richmond. And we're going to make this an evening of financial independence. So you and I are going to do somewhere in the vicinity of a 30-minute introductory presentation on financial independence. What is FI? And then we're going to have this exclusive screening of Playing with Fire. And then afterwards, we're going to have a Q&A with the two of us, with Scott and Taylor Rickens, who are the stars and creators of this movie. Maybe, who knows? There might be some other FI members out in the community that want to come up on stage with us. And it should just be a wonderful event. I think this has the potential to be the biggest event really in the history of the FI community. I mean, where else have we had 600 people all get together to learn about FI and to experience this community? I think it truly could be phenomenal. And like we have always said, this is about spreading this message. We figured out this superpower of life. It really is so easy in the grand scheme of things to get on the path to FI because it's just about taking action. But for so many people, it's just being introduced to it that very first time. I know personally, I'm going way out of my comfort zone and pretty much telling every single person I know here in Richmond.
It's actually funny. Can I point out that while me and you have been doing this podcast, we kind of privately do this, but we put it out to the world, but we don't really actively promote it to the local Richmond area. And can I say that for this, because you're so passionate about this and believe that this is as important as it is, I have seen you promote it more to our local community, not just like our actual ChooseFI local group, but actually everybody that you know in this particular area. And that's kind of you putting your reputation on the line a little bit. That's you saying, I think this is important. I've never asked you for something like this before, but if I were to call on one card, I want you to be a part of this. I would appreciate your presence at this event. And it's because we're proud of what this community has produced. We're proud of the way this documentary presents its message. And we genuinely believe that when we look back several years from now, we'll say this was an inflection point for the world. This is an inflection point for changing the conversation about money, taking away the taboo that comes along with it, the stigma, and allowing us to both learn from each other and live our best life now.
Yeah, so again, this event is Friday, July 19th. Tickets are available. We set up a nice, simple short code so you can remember. It's just choosefi.com/Richmond. So yeah, if you are interested, we would love for you to join us. Jonathan kind of jokingly said, if you live within a 6-hour drive, but realistically, this should be an amazing event. And
Josh Overmeyer has come to 2 screenings all the way from Florida, travel the country. Yeah. Josh, feel free to come to our Richmond screening. And really, no, it's an open invitation. How cool would it be if people from around the world flooded Richmond? I know it's kind of short notice, but flooded Richmond for this event. I think probably Richmond even has some pretty cool Airbnbs in this area. You could probably pick one up for the night. If people in our local group have Airbnbs they want us to publicize, we can put them on the show notes for today's page and in perpetuity.
So yeah, choosefi.com/Richmond. We'd love to see you there.
Guys, there's also local screenings happening all over the country. And obviously, we're talking about Richmond because this event is coming up for us here on July 19th. We want to give people as much heads up as possible. But we are announcing all the ticket thresholds that are happening for the grassroots screening all over the country. I'm doing a running announcement of that at the end of every episode. If you are, for some reason, waiting on me to tell you when that ticket threshold is, instead of just going to ChooseFI.com/tug, TUGG, and seeing if there's one in your area, then just wait till the end of this episode. I will give you a running announcement of every screening whose ticket threshold is about to land within the next 2 weeks or so. And then we'll just kind of keep that thing going forward. Again, though, you can just bypass all that by going to ChooseFI.com/tug, TUGG. All right. Now, speaking of Airbnbs, one of the things that's interesting that's kind of tied to this card dossier that we wanted to go over today is the Inc. Business Preferred. Now, when the word business shows up in a card, the intent is that this is a card that is intended for business owners. But what does it actually mean to be a business owner is a pretty wide spectrum. And I think many people write these cards off because they say, I don't have a business. Well, that's unfortunate if you write that off unnecessarily, because one of the best travel rewards card and one that we recommend in our ChooseFI Travel Rewards course is the Chase Inc. Business Preferred.
Yeah, Jonathan, this is my number one small business card without question. And as we're recording this in June 2019, there is an enhanced offer on this card. So you get 80,000 bonus Chase Ultimate Rewards points after you meet the minimum spending requirement of $5,000 within the first 3 months of account opening.
What's cool about that is this card is going to allow you to transfer, because again, this falls under the Chase umbrella. This card is going to allow you to transfer those 80,000 Ultimate Rewards points toward your travel plan. So at the bare minimum, you can get $800 in cash back. So the card just by itself would be worth $800. But if you're intentional about your travel plans, those 80,000 points can actually be worth at least $1,300 or even more, especially if you use the tactics that Ed showed in the ChooseFI travel course with that trip for 2 to Hawaii. So if that's on your radar at all, don't skip this. Make sure that you're following through on this. There's more though. So, putting that aside, you can earn 3 times per dollar on business categories on the first $150,000 in combined purchases in the following categories each account anniversary year. And that includes travel, shipping purchases, internet, cable, and phone services, advertising purchases with social media sites and search engines. If you're a small business owner, advertising is likely part of your business model. This makes the Chase Inc. Business Preferred a clear winner. So that means that if your business routinely spends on these categories, you could earn up to 450,000 Chase Ultimate Rewards points. Now, without naming names, I do know one individual that has a massive software as a service business and spends a very hefty amount on advertising for that business. He has points for life. But this is something that you can scale to your needs. Like just the bonus that comes with it by default makes this worth it. Even if you're a small business owner that has something like an Airbnb or Uber or Lyft or a side hustle, this is likely a card that is going to be for you. And that kind of goes to the point. Don't let the business and the card's name throw you off. This is a great card to have in your wallet. And most people in the FI community will qualify for it, even if you have W-2 income. Now, I know your situation can be different, and to keep me from spending 45 minutes walking through all the details, we have put a concise version of this together on Ed's travel course, which you can find at ChooseFI.com/travel. But suffice it to say, if you have a new side hustle business, you should be applying for this card. This will be a great fit for you. Okay, now to our audience listening to this, we have partnered with Card Ratings for our coverage of credit cards. They are an affiliate of this program. And if you want to get started with your travel rewards journey and simultaneously want to support this show, go to ChooseFI.com/Inc. to start your travel rewards journey today. And to find out how to fully utilize your card, go to ChooseFI.com/travel for the free travel rewards course that will show you how to take full advantage of this superpower. All right, well, unfortunately, that is going to bring this episode to a close. Now, as you know, we like to finish every episode by doing a drawing for a copy of a book that we have found useful. There's 3 books that we offer. The first is J.L. Collins' book, The Simple Path to Wealth. The second is from Dominic Cortuccio, Design Your Future. And the third book from Vincent Puglisi, Freelance to Freedom. If you want to enter the drawing, all you need to do is just go to ChooseFI.com/iTunes, follow the instructions there, leave us a short written review, and then send us an email to feedback@ChooseFI.com, letting us know that you left a review and what screen name you left it under. We give away 1 book for every 5 written reviews that we get, and we announce the winner on the Friday Roundup. Brad, how many winners do we have today?
All right, Jonathan, we have 1 winner today, and the winner is Jennifer. She called this the best 2 hours of your week. I recently stumbled across the ChooseFI podcast, and it has literally changed my life.
Not metaphorically, literally.
Literally, yes. I'm a newly single mom who has been trying to redesign my life to better myself and my family. Brad and Jonathan give me hope each week. They really woke me up that I have been on the hamster wheel for the last 15 years working in corporate America, and that I actually have a choice. I've been going back and binging on old episodes, and I honestly find something in every episode that I can actually apply. I've opened a business credit card. I'm planning an awesome vacation for my kiddos that I otherwise could not afford. I figured out how to drastically cut my largest fixed expenses, daycare and my grocery bill. I've pulled up my 401k and paid attention for the first time in my life to the expense ratio, and I changed funds to mirror the one that mirrors the S&P 500 index instead of just the target fund that someone in HR told me about years ago when I was hired. I'm learning about tax optimization and actually enjoying it. I'm even trying to figure out how to take a few gap years to spend time with my little ones now, instead of just planning for a long retirement 30 plus years from now. ChooseFI has given me back my sense of control and validation to think outside the box and know that I can do this. Subscribe to the podcast, listen to the episodes, and put their tips into action. You will not regret it.
I know that I can do this. And think about that for your situation. You can do this. You've got this. All right, my friends, the fire is spreading. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.
You've been listening to ChooseFI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging out till the end. Again, you can bypass everything that I'm saying right now by just going to ChooseFI.com/tug, T-U-G-G, and look for a screening in your local area. If there isn't one already, then you can initiate one and you can post it either in our main group or in your local group. Probably be better to post it in the local group to find people in your area that would be interested. Tips and advice if you're going to do that. Push the screening date back as far as possible just to give yourself time to build awareness around your event. That's really the biggest thing, and just making sure people know that it's happening. And that's my goal with this little bit, is just to let you know which events have their ticket threshold coming up in the near future and giving you that information as quickly as possible. So on June 30th, Orlando, Florida. On July 2nd, Bend, Oregon. Springfield, Missouri. New Brunswick, New Jersey. Fort Collins, Colorado. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. On July 3rd, Astoria, New York, High Point, North Carolina, Dover, Delaware, Voorhees, Brad, did I say that right? Voorhees, Voorhees, New Jersey. Man, I really tried, guys. I think I said that right. I'll go back and look later to make sure. Worcester, Massachusetts. By the way, is Worcestershire sauce may be the most difficult word in the English language. And it just made me think of that. Brad, help me out here. Say that.
I think it's Worcester, Mass.
Worcester, Mass. Okay. Sacramento, California, also on July 3rd. Where do these names come from? Puyallup, Washington. Puyallup. I think you just made that name up. July 3rd. Willoughby, Ohio. And I know they've posted this in the Northeast Ohio group on July 7th. Santa Cruz, California on July 8th. Bozeman, Montana. Brad, MT, yes. Montana on July 8th. Foxborough, Massachusetts, also on July 8th. If you are in any way, shape, or form interested, or if you've been considering whether or not you should go to a screening, join. I'm telling you, this is the way to experience this documentary. Don't wait for it to show up on Netflix or on DVD so that you can hang out in your Snuggie. You want to do this with your community. Please go and join, be a part of this. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.